Hey everyone, welcome to Daily Dose of CISSP. So today we go ahead. Yesterday we did a CIA triad, and now we will look into certain more concepts pertaining to CISSP. So first amongst them is what are the protection mechanisms of information systems? So amongst them is something called defense in depth. Now, whenever you want to safeguard a data asset or an information asset which is critical, it should not be part of the first layer of attack. So that means attacker should not have access to that important data item in first go. It should be well protected against a layer so that it encounters multiple layers. Now, multiple layers means it is going to have to encounter one control after the another. Okay, and such systems, such layering of systems gives it a depth, and that is why it's called defense in depth. Now, defense in depth is a military concept. So when I was in the army, if we are trying to protect a piece of ground, what will happen is we will always surround it with multiple layers of security positions. So what used to happen was that if enemy is going to attack from one side, it will effectively come under fire from multiple directions. So once they have to, so that means the enemy has to neutralize this position, and then proceed further, and it again encounters another layer of, defensive protection. Now, this is a military concept, and that's why it's called defense in depth. Similarly, once you are trying to safeguard an asset and against a particular line of attack, what will happen is that such protection mechanisms should be serial in nature, and you encounter the first control and then the second control, and then only you will have access to the data asset, and that's why it's called defense in depth, right? Okay, so this is what one of the concepts is, defense in depth. Second concept is abstraction. You never showcase your main logic or main concept to a generic user or an attacker. So what abstraction means is you always protect the logic, keep the logic away from something which is very usual, right? So once you are coding in, say you are making a program, and you are having a logic which is proprietary in nature, which carries out, say, LCM of given numbers, right? So what happens is you just call a function LCM. So what happens is this LCM function is called. How the LCM is carried out is abstracted from the user. Okay, so similarly, like if you are making a railway reservation, you don't come to know how many seats are vacant. It's abstracted from you. Okay, if you are accessing a bank, your bank balance, you don't get to see the ledgers of other users. You only get to see what are your transactions, and that is called the abstraction. You do not show the logic which the user doesn't intend to have visibility into. But why is that important? That is important because when attacker tries to attack, he also should not get access to the logic, which is the main idea behind a particular information asset. Okay, so that is the concept of abstraction. Now, data hiding. Data hiding is a concept which means sweeping the key under the floor. Okay, you remember those days when you will just lock the door and keep the key under the door, or you have a secret file which you have named as music file, thinking that if somebody gets access, he will ignore that file, saying that this is in hiding in plain sight. Data hiding is a bad concept. Never utilize data hiding in your security arrangements. Whenever you're planning for security, you're architecting for security, never ever try to hide data in plain sight, thinking that the attacker will not come to know. Okay, that's a bad concept. And finally, the only way you can protect data logically is by encrypting it. Okay, so there are two kind of encryption mechanisms. One is symmetric encryption, and one is asymmetric encryption. And there are a lot of algorithms which are used for both symmetric and asymmetric algorithms. We will study about that later. However, encryption is one of the most important topics of CISSP, and you should know what is hashing, what is symmetric encryption, and what is asymmetric encryption, and their basic applications like PKI, public key encryption systems, and digital signatures. Okay, so this is something which we will cover over a period of time, right? And then there is something called a security boundary. Once you are architecting security, you will generally see that most enterprise systems depend on the internet for networking. So generally, you will have a security perimeter inside which all your devices will reside. Okay, and this will be generally be protected with a firewall. Okay, and your IDS systems and IPS systems, and then you will get an entry inside your perimeter network. Okay, so generally a security boundary is where your data changes state from one to another. So that means if any user is trying to access from your perimeter, okay, if a user is inside your perimeter, it's trying to access its email from a cloud service provider, say Gmail. So what happens is a request goes out from a perimeter and a request comes in from. Request is given by, so response is given by Gmail from its servers. So what happens is it creates an imaginary boundary at which you will probably have to implement a security control. So as a security architect, as a security professional, you need to identify such boundaries where data changes state, where data is going from one security perimeter to the another, because that will help you in assessing where to put the control. Okay, by control you can have a physical control, a logical control, or a administrative control. A physical control in this case is not applicable. For an email, you will probably have a logical control such as a email security system, or you will have a firewall which can do a packet inspection and see what kind of any malware or any other phishing link is going into your enterprise network. Okay, so that's why security boundary is important. Okay, let's finish today's session with a small question and try to see are we able to assess this question correctly. So this question says, in an organization authentication system, which of the following methods provides the strongest level of security against password attacks? Okay, now can you relate this question to what we studied right just now? Okay, what we understood. Probably it's a defense in depth question. Okay, the strongest level of security against password based attacks. Okay, so it says password complexity requirements and regular password expiration policies. Okay, is it a strongest level of security against password based attacks? May not be. Two-factor authentication using combination of password and a time-based one-time TOTP generated by a mobile app. Oh, this looks like a strong system because it's got two factors. Okay, that means if this is the asset you're trying to access, there has to be an OTP and there has to be a password. So that means it's a defense in depth concept. So that was what I was trying to refer to, that you can see that this is a defense in depth concept. Two controls to access your particular data. Single factor authentication using long passphrase that includes, okay, this is again ruled out, single factor, so it's not. Biometric authentication using fingerprint recognition technology. Okay, only one factor. So there is only one factor. There is one control here. There is one control here. Here we have two controls. So that means that should be the right answer, right? Okay, and the answer is B. So thank you. That is all for the day. So we learned some three concepts, basically defense in depth, abstraction, and data hiding, right? So have these concepts ready. and do follow us for more CISSP content. This was today's daily dose. Thank you. Bye bye.